let's get started. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Sandy Stelling, Managing Director of Customer Research and Development at Alaska Air Group. She oversees the company's Center of Excellence on Custom Innovation to develop solutions to advance the customer experience. She's also responsible for customer insights and analytics and customer communications for Alaska Airlines. During her 15 years with Alaska, she's also served in numerous leadership roles in airport operations and aircraft maintenance. In addition to these responsibilities, she developed and led strategic programs to achieve performance and financial objectives across both Alaska and Horizon. Phew, that's some CV, isn't it? Please join me in welcoming Sandy Stelling.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pacific Northwest. How many of you guys, it's the first time here in Portland? All right, you guys are in for a good couple days. So my name is Sandy Stelling. I'm with Alaska Airlines, based in Seattle. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys this morning. You're in our neck of the woods, and I live right up the road in Seattle. And we have the opportunity today to share a little bit of our story. When I talked to the folks at Apex, they were saying, hey, it'd be great to have an airline tell a little bit of what their story is. And some of the folks I've already talked to this morning said, how is it as the end user? Tell us how it's going for you. So I thought a good way to do this was first introduce you a little bit to Alaska. So how many of you are really familiar with Alaska Airlines? A couple here in the front row, thank you. So we were founded in 1932 in Alaska, as you can imagine where the name comes from. And we have a pretty unique history, starting out like many other airlines, a lot of mergers, acquisitions, combinations, to bring us to who we are today. And somewhere in our history, we moved down to Seattle, and we really started to grow more domestically. And now we fly also to Canada and Mexico, and show you a little bit about who we are. So we have grown. I've been with Alaska now over 15 years. And when I started working for Alaska, we didn't even fly east of Denver. So just to give you a sense of what our growth has been. We've also grown to the fact now we have well over 14,000 employees. We have a fleet of over 140 aircraft, and we fly to over 100 destinations. What's also unique about us with our customers, for our customers, is our partners. We have a broad international partnership. Even some newer partners you may have heard recently, Hainan and Icelandair, are not here. But we're able to offer over 900 worldwide destinations to our customers, which isn't bad being the little airline in the Pacific Northwest. So a couple things to talk about before I get into really what the passenger experience is like. It really starts with this for us. For us, the basics are, time is probably the most precious currency for our customers, right? How many of you know when you travel, it's all about time, and it's about the hassles you experience. So we worked really hard to make sure that we deliver our passengers on time to their destinations. And we've been recognized by Flight Stats the last 5 years as the #1 airline in North America to do so. It's something that our employees work day to day on, very hard and very proud of. And we do it because it is something that matters to the passenger experience, as well as some of the other things that we'll get into on board. We talk about mobility. On that earlier slide, right, 71% of the customers board the aircraft with a smartphone now. And this has been a big area of investment for Alaska, and we've seen our customers respond tremendously positively about our app. Very proud of it. It's been recognized. But more importantly, it just helps save customers time, and it helps make the experience completely hassle-free, putting everything they need at their fingertips, including the ability to pre-order their food on their flights, obviously check-in, upgrade, change flights, and a lot of the other features. And these features are actually developed and prioritized by our customers. So we listen to them. They tell us what they need, and then we're able to move forward and deliver for them. So this is kind of really, I think, the bulk of what I wanted to share with you this morning. When you talk about how we got here, from 2000 to 2010, the U.S. airline industry went through tremendous change, right? So after 9/11, Alaska also prior to that had an incident. All the airlines were in cost cutting, most of them going through bankruptcy, us doing what we could to not go through bankruptcy. That took a lot of structural change into the airline. In the second half of the 2000s, so let's say 2005 to 2007, if any of you flew Alaska, First, I want to apologize. Because of the top 20 airlines in on-time performance, we were number 20 and fighting to be there. And what we realized was before we could do some of these other, deliver other experiences to brighten your day, we had to actually be able to run an airline. And so we doubled down and we measured and we put process in place and we innovated around running an airline. And we've been able to maintain those gains going forward. And I kind of highlight that because building a cost model for sustainability and growth, building an operations model for sustainability and growth, you'll see a little bit of pattern of how we take on now the passenger experience to build for sustainability and growth. So you'll see that we sort of have a playbook that we've been sticking to now since 2010, really focusing on the passenger experience. So we'll go into each of these. I thought I would take you through a little bit about the aircraft, the entertainment, the food and beverage, as well as I want to touch on employees, because from where I come from, that's a really big piece of the experience as well. So as I said, we went through restructuring like a lot of the other carriers did. We didn't go through bankruptcy, but we did find is in about 2010, we woke up to a new industry. And we said, okay, with all of this competition now coming out of bankruptcy with different business models, and with our desire and willingness to grow, how are we going to position ourselves to do this in a sustainable way? And what we realized was the customer experience was clearly at the forefront. I don't think I'm telling anyone in the room here something you don't already know. The challenge for us was to figure out a way to do it that would allow us to grow and scale and still stay authentic and true to who we were. We weren't going to be able to show up and be some other airline. And just for context, we represent only about 5% of the market here in the US. So you have to realize is we want to show up and we want to play on the big stage. We got to figure out how to do it on our terms. And so how are we going to go about that? Well, like you saw, we began in Bristol Bay in 1932, which probably wasn't the most desirable place to start an airline. And so what happens is you start to innovate. And innovation really is solving problems in new ways, and for us it was just overcoming constraints and obstacles. Now we wanted to take all of that energy and figure out how we can innovate to deliver a better passenger experience. And so we started with the product, with the aircraft. I was talking to a couple of gentlemen here earlier who made comments about our seat selection, but that's okay. But one of the big things we did in the 2000s was we transitioned our fleet. We transitioned out of the MD-80 aircraft to an all 737 mainline fleet to make sure that we were fuel efficient, again, not losing gains in the cost model. More recently, we made changes on our seats and our interiors, moved to the Boeing Sky Interior, and we've actually introduced now in 2015 a Preferred Plus seating option for our customers, which we're seeing tremendous response. But a little bit how we get here. I think it's very easy for an airline to go, oh, well, we'll just put different seats in the aircraft. And we'll pencil out some numbers, and that will make sense. And a lot of times we're looking for an extra row for incremental revenue. But we actually started with the customer. We had feedback that said that they didn't have enough space. So how do you get more space? So we benchmarked against our current seats. We looked at other seats that were available. We brought customers in to sit in different seats. And you'll notice a pattern, though. We engage our customers in a lot of this process. And we're listening along the way so we can evolve our thinking and get smarter as we go. And the result of that is where we are today with our new Recaro seats that we have on board our aircraft, the new interiors that we have with our Boeing 737s and our Preferred Plus. And what we're moving forward now here is as well, so how many of you get anxious when you're going to board the plane for space for your carry-on bag? Nobody? You guys aren't telling me the truth, I know that. So we know that overhead space is a big concern for customers when they're traveling. And one of the big things we really looked at was what can we do? So again, we have a spirit of experimentation. We want to test, we want to learn. So we actually took one aircraft and put a ship set of bins on it and said, what would happen? How would it change the experience? And we surveyed not just customers. We wanted to learn from customers. We wanted to learn from our maintenance teams. We wanted to learn from everybody else. We also wanted to learn from employees in that case. And what we found was there were some things we were going to need to do to make this a winning solution for customers and employees. And with that, we now have, starting next month, we'll be taking delivery of our first space bins. That will enable, I think it's a 30% increase in overhead bin space on our aircraft for our customers. For those our markets, our flights will range from an hour to 6-hour flights. So there's a lot of opportunity with the business traveler and the short flight. Seattle Bay Area is a big one that we can actually accommodate more of the carry-on bags and take better care of what our customers are looking for. So entertainment. I love seeing like Warner Brothers and some of the other fun stuff, where entertainment comes from these days. I'll be honest with you guys, Alaska's a little behind where we want to be here right now. But in January, this past January, we launched Alaska Beyond Entertainment, and we have it made a couple big signature moves for us. What we did was we moved to a different onboard device for customers who wanted to use a device. We also created streaming onto our customers' own devices, enabling them to stream onto their device. It's an interesting debate you introduced about whether it's 2 devices, 1 device, how that's going to work over time, as well as power. And power is a fun one because we couldn't decide, do you do 110, do you do USB? You can see from the Instagram picture from one of our customers, we did both. And we found out it's been a winning solution. But I guess the one thing I'll share you we've learned is that the USB piece has actually given us a little more runway with customers in terms of brand perception, maybe than we intended or that we expected, assumed, but it's been a pleasant surprise. And if you're ever just walking down the aisle of the aircraft, it's always fun to see who's got what plugged in, to see what people are bringing with them. But this has been a big move for us. This has done a lot to improve the customer experience, and our customers are responding. We still have more work to do here, and I'll touch a little on what our next steps are as we look forward into 2016. So the other one I'll touch on in entertainment comes in Wi-Fi. So how many remember a couple years ago when you had Wi-Fi and you were thrilled? I knew once I flew to Alaska and we had Wi-Fi over Canada, and I was giggling. It was so exciting. We're like, oh my gosh, it's not now we're in a place that Wi-Fi is expected. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, you're well behind the power curve where you need to be. And customers will actually make choices of whether or not you can guarantee Wi-Fi on that flight. Our lives have changed to the point that it used to be the quiet time to get away, and now it's the productive time, or perhaps for the millennials, it's the social time. But you can't be unplugged and you can't be unconnected. So Alaska's a little behind where we want to be, but we are making investments to improve our Wi-Fi on our aircraft. Again, we've been listening to customers on this. One of the things we talked about, I mentioned earlier, was daily surveys. We actually get 11,000 surveys a week from customers who fly on us, and we are able to respond to all of their concerns that come through, both at an individual customer level and as a system level. And I will tell you, Wi-Fi is something we're listening to loud and clear, and we're moving as fast as we can to make those improvements for customers. We may be starting out on markets where it matters more, but we're continuing to make those efforts. So food and beverage. It was funny on the earlier slide, it's like food isn't as important. I'll be honest, at Alaska, I'm really proud of our food, which is funny as an airline to say, I'm proud of our food. But we said, we're from the Pacific Northwest. Part of our opportunity is to be a little different and just being authentic to who we are. And we really appreciate locally sourced, high-quality products, and we appreciate them because our customers appreciate them. And so on this slide here, just if you're not familiar, welcome to the Northwest, Chateau Saint Michel award-winning wines are from Washington. That one picture is our Alaska magazine, but that is Tom Douglas, a celebrity chef in the Seattle area with about 13 restaurants in a square mile. And we now have Tom Douglas signature meals on our flight in coach, which sometimes upsets our first class passengers. Sometimes they think our coach food is a little better than first class, so an opportunity there. But also partnering, whether it's with local Sun Liquor distilleries. Starbucks coffee is in our backyard. Beecher's Cheese and Alaskan Brewing out of Juneau, Alaska. But what we have found is that our customers really respond to that local flair. And they really appreciate something that also says, hey, it feels like home. So whether they're flying us to our newest destination of Nashville or now JFK, when they get on board our aircraft, they get a little taste of home. And for those customers, as we're growing, who don't know Alaska, it's a way to introduce them to the Pacific Northwest, something that is uniquely ours. So employees. So I know I don't think there's a booth downstairs for employees. I'll give you guys that. But there's a lot of ways that we can really empower employees. During the introduction, you heard I actually lead our customer analytics department. in addition to our innovation department. And with the analytics group, what we're really trying to understand is, you can call it a big data project. How do you bring all the customer insights, the iPassenger that I saw earlier on the screen? There's a real interesting fine line that I appreciate Apex is going to take on about how you look at this data and how you got to be careful on a cool to creepy spectrum on what we know about customers and passengers and what kind of experience we can create for them. If all of a sudden I know you drink red wine on every flight before 9 a.m., you may not want me to tell you that when you're sitting with your boss. Just an example. So there's things like that where I may know all of that, but I have to be real sensitive what kind of experience I want to create for you. And so when we think about it, I think technical folks, and I am one, will say it's a big data project. We actually don't take it on that way. We're taking it on as a humanity project. The opportunity for us at Alaska, like I said, we started small. We still have flight attendants and passengers, airport employees and passengers who've known each other for decades in some of our small towns. They know that when they go to the ticket counter and they get on board, it's the same flight attendant they see every Thursday at 10. They know whether that customer is getting on board for a family emergency or a vacation or a business trip. Our opportunity is to figure out how to use data to scale that intimate experience. And that's where employees are a big piece of how we can deliver that. And it's really sensitive for us as we're looking to grow the rate that we've been growing, because we're hiring new employees all the time. And so how can we help them create and emulate that experience that we know exists in other parts of the operation in our company? It's a little scary, but it is a challenge that we take wholeheartedly and said, this is what's really going to be important. Because as all of the technology comes in and all of the new features we can bring on board, there's moments you guys can take it to as like a little bit of an arms race. And at the end of the day, I do believe that it's employees who are going to differentiate and bring all of that to life and deliver that experience when you're spending that much time together on that flight. One other thing we've actually done to that, because while you've seen, we are continuing to invest in different parts of the experience, whether it is the cabin, whether it is the amenities and the entertainment and Wi-Fi, whether it is the food and beverage, those are all works in progress. We are paralleling that with a track to invest in our employees. And the two ways, one is this mobile devices that our flight attendants now have an iPhone 6. And they have the opportunity to bring more information in the non-creepy way to deliver an experience for customers and take care of them. We're also extending that to our airports. Our customer service agents in airports also are having mobile devices to do the same. But second to that, we're investing in the people themselves. And we are now we're a company of 14,000. We're putting over 8,500 frontline employees through a day-and-a-half workshop where we're spending time about what it means with technology, with today's day and age, with the growth, with the change. How do you deliver an exceptional experience for customers? And they're getting the opportunity to not only celebrate the legacy and history of where we've come from, but to really be inspired and motivated to go forth and deliver that experience every day. And where we close that loop with employees, as I said earlier, is with our daily surveys. We have, again, over 11,000 surveys a week from customers. Over 20% of them actually leave additional comments and feedback. And just to give you a set of examples, there are a lot of them that are concerns, and we take them to heart, and we address them with every single customer, as well as at a systemic level. We also have the opportunity to receive kudos for employees. And so it's kind of fun to stand here and say that within 12 months of the program, we'd received over 70,000 kudos for our employees that we were able to deliver to them. And what that does, more powerful than any concern or complaint, is it inspires them and motivates them to go forth and do more, do good. So when we talk about all of the things you need in the ecosystem of the passenger experience, measuring and building it into a system that allows you to understand the health and how you're doing and where you need to move, just like we had done in the early 2000s with cost, just like we had done in the late 2000s with operations, we're now doing that with the customer experience with all of the employees and stakeholders involved. So now the question is it working? We'd like to think so, but really we look to our customers to tell us if it's working. So I do get to tout a little bit and say, so far, so good. So far, so good is this year we were honored to be recognized 8 years in a row by J.D. Powers for Best in Customer Satisfaction. And while this is a tremendous award and we're honored to receive it, I think more importantly, it's to know the day-to-day moments and the feedback we get from our customers is equally, if not more, compelling for us to say we're doing the right thing. I think the story you told about Southwest, the stories you heard about the Delta pilot and the pizza, I was like, I think all the airlines have the stories. You're right, they're not well told. We have the opportunity to see some of them internally and share them, but I love that you guys are doing those awards because there are a lot of stories out there. So far, so good, but we know we can't rest on our laurels, and that's what's really important too, is make sure we do not rest on our laurels. The airline that sits down and says, okay, we got this, is the airline that's soon to be done. So a couple keys to our success and what we need to do to take forward for us is we have to stay authentic to who we are. Like I said, we're 14,000 people. We're up here in the Pacific Northwest. We've been growing gangbusters. It's been great fun. There's a lot of risk with that. But at the end of the day, we're Alaska Airlines. We know where we come from. We know what we stand for. And we're going to stay true to who we are. Some of that may look a little unconventional sometimes. Sometimes we try things and we're like, ooh, didn't quite get that one right. But it really goes to our spirit of experimentation and test and learn. We put out our Alaska Beyond in-flight experience, and we learned a couple things right out of the gates. But we were able to quickly be on top of it and adjust and adapt. And we were able to do that because we're very closely listening to customers and employees through the entire time. By involving employees in this, you get your best brand ambassadors you could ever hope for. Right? They'll help you sell whatever it is you're trying to sell. If they're involved and they buy into what you're trying to do. And then listening and act on that feedback. What we have found is when we've reached out to customers and thanked them for their feedback, one, they're typically blown away. Again, I think the airline industry still has some room to do from a brand perspective, an image of who we are and how we operate. But that transparency, that collaboration, and that commitment that we actually want to give them a great experience, it does wonders for the relationships we're building with customers. And those are long, enduring relationships. But at the end of the day, if I can listen, that's great. I have to take action. And as an airline, that's something that we're very committed to, is make sure we take action when we find out that there's something we're not delivering right on. Whether that's at an individual, again, for one customer, or whether it's something that we've introduced into our operations or our experience that is not working. We'll go make those changes. And we're letting the data and the system of measurement help us drive what we're trying to do. And we're not done. So some challenges and opportunities. So I'm sure some of the other airlines here share some of these. But quality and consistent delivery, whether that's with vendor partners, whether that's with the employees who are delivering the service, that's probably where we have the highest variability. We have 3,700 flight attendants, and about a third of them are new hired in the last 18 months. So if you think about their level of understanding of the business for someone who's been with us, we have 40-plus year flight attendants. We have risk for some variability in delivery of the experience. But so it's something that we're cognizant of. For mainline and regional differences, this is a nut, I'll be honest, I'm not sure we've cracked yet. Right? Whether it's fleet type, or it's cities you serve, markets you serve, but understanding duration of flight. It's really hard to deliver a remarkable experience in 23 minutes. However, it wasn't that long ago in our history, I learned this about Alaska before I joined. On a 42-minute flight, I'll just tell you, from Seattle to Spokane, we used to serve a full steak dinner. I'm not sure who ate it, but we served it. But you just think about how the industry has changed and what the opportunity is. We really want to take a look at the mainline and regional differences, because when we go out and we market and we talk to customers about what we offer, and then they show up that day and it is not there, it's just a recipe for disappointment. So being sure that we can be real clear so that it's easy for customers to understand and know what to expect puts the burden on us to deliver. Cost and time to implement. Some of the technologies, and I think you heard, I used to work in aircraft maintenance. I dream of genie all the planes tomorrow into something else. I wish that I could. So sometimes there is a cost and time to implement, and a risk that the timeline it takes to get it done, with the rate of change of everything happening in technology, did you miss that boat? And how do you stay ahead and leapfrog the next one? It's a real challenge for all of us. It's all changing quickly. And not only is the technology changing, but how the passenger uses it and how it exists in their life. If you think about it, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there was no iPhone. There was no smartphone, and the way that we traveled was completely different. You remember all the passengers would carry the piles of paper? Right? You're right, now it's all in your phone. So so how do we think about what the future is going to look like? And not only what technology will bring, but how the passengers will embrace it and use it in our industry. It's an interesting puzzle that we're going to have to work together to solve. Strong vendor partnerships. I love the statement earlier that obviously we can all win here. There is a huge opportunity for us all to work together to win in this industry, and we will get there if we keep our eye on that customer, because that'll be the North Star we all share. We'll work together to find the business models that work. We'll work together to find the solutions that work. And the customers will be the ones that tell us if it works or if it's not. And so building those strong partnerships over time is really powerful. As I said earlier, the changing customer expectations. We've been learning a lot about our millennial passengers. And to be honest, we're probably a little nervous for who we've been and where we are in our journey. We're realizing we have to take a little bit more of a look and make sure, are we bringing the right products and offerings to the table for the millennials? You know, we have a very strong core elite customer base. But we have to think about those millennials as our future core elite customer base. And their needs are different than those that we serve today. So it really is interesting of how we have to have ethnographers and other sociologists on staff or something that we can access to understand what's going on with humanity so that we know how to show up for that. And then just competition. You know, the biggest thing we've seen here in the U.S. is with a lot of the larger carriers coming through mergers and bankruptcy and all the structural changes in our industry and fuel prices down, the competition's never been hotter. And what's really fascinating is it isn't all about price anymore. It used to be you just go compete on price, and that's who you're going to fill your plane with. And that isn't how it works anymore. Customers have the opportunity and the luxury for choice. Heard choice mentioned earlier. But we got to make sure we're presenting the choice that those customers want. So as I said, we're never done. We're not done. We're up to hearing it right now, to be honest with you. Those pictures look great in those first couple slides. Look at all the things we've done, because I don't have pictures of what we're doing now. But we are provisioning these new space bins on deliveries. We'll take our first delivery in October, and we're really excited about that. We talked about the money being spent for retrofitting. That's another challenge we're going to have to tackle, to retrofit our existing fleet as well as forward-looking deliveries. But really understanding, it's very easy to be the finance guy and say, why would we spend all this money on a bin? The bin makes me no money. If anything, I'd rather them check the bag and collect the fee. But the reality is we have to put the customer at the center of the decisions we're making and figure out where else we could drive revenue for this business. And because if we don't do that, those customers are going to fly somebody else. So it's a very interesting debate. I'm sure some of you at other airlines are having these debates when you want to invest in customer experience, because some of them have some pretty interesting price tags when you get into aircraft retrofit. But we're doing the right things for the right reasons, starting with those bins. We are making improvements to our in-flight internet service. We still have a challenge in front of us. Over 20% of our flights, you may not know this, actually go to Hawaii, Alaska to Hawaii. And that really poses a challenge for us as we don't have a satellite service. And we're going to have to figure out where we put that in our pipeline. Because if 20% of if we say, hey, we're an airline that offers Wi-Fi service except for 20% of the time, it's not really a brand proposition you can stand behind. So that's something we're looking at. The in-flight entertainment content, we have some very Alaska-specific content. We're also getting feedback through those surveys I mentioned from customers about our content. And we're looking right now at what we can do to freshen up our content and make sure that it really appeals to customers and how we can find a win-win there as well. So that's in work. Onboard food and beverage. Part of this is we have great, again, frequent customers. They don't want the same turkey sandwich every week. The other thing, and you guys all know this in the galleys, how much food can I put on that plane? And how do I have the variety for everybody on board? So one of the things you saw in the mobile apps picture, we're looking at ways that customers can pre-order, which one gives them certainty and security they'll get what they want, but it also on the back end helps the business provision and put the right things on board the plane. Really key business opportunity to deliver against a customer need. And including our food and beverage, there's lots of opportunities there. It's been an interesting journey. Again, customer feedback on this has been terrific. It's been real helpful, whether it's the quality or the type of food. Sometimes we've also backed into it's the way we've actually educated our flight attendants to serve it and prepare it. We learned a lot there. We're like, oh, we should explain to the flight attendants how to prepare that food. That would be helpful. So we learned that within a week of launching a new product. Invest in our flight attendant mobile apps. This is new this year, so we are just getting started. This is a great greenfield for us. I think the interesting thing looking forward with this is the ecosystem on board that aircraft. You have in-flight entertainment, the flight attendants have devices, the customer has devices, there may actually be an airline-provided device. How does that ecosystem work on that aircraft to create an experience? Who's talking to who? Who knows what about who? How's that going to work? Very interesting space. Very cool. Could be a little creepy. But it's just something that we're playing about. And then for us, it really is a commitment to who we've been. Keep listening to employees and customers. Make sure that we're listening to what's going on out there so that we can be quick and adapt. Because the big thing in all of this, and you guys know this well, right? It's speed. This industry's never moved so quickly. And customers' expectations have never been moving as quickly as they are. Because the competition isn't the last airline they flew. It is the last time they were served. And so really understanding where service levels are changing across all industries is where we have to pay attention. So in the future, airlines will win and lose on the customer experience. Again, it isn't about price. You're still going to have the price shoppers. I'm not here to tell you that the price shoppers are going away. They're there. They're going to be, there are customers who will buy strictly on price forever. Don't want to turn them away, want to appeal to them as well. But at the same time, there are customers with discretion, with choice. And we got to make sure we're offering what those customers want. And that customer experience is what it's going to be about. A challenge for us as an airline is products are easily copied. We stood alone for a while with a service guarantee that we offered to customers. And within a day, it was offered by a competitor. So our advantage was gone in one day. So when you look at products and services and some of that, you have to be real careful about how long are you going to enjoy that honeymoon? How long are you going to have that advantage? And when that advantage goes away, what do you have next as experience? And then that really does look to your employees. Are you investing in your employees the way you're investing in your products and services so that raise all boats, so that the entire experience is getting better, regardless of whether it's a digital touch point, a seat, or an employee that you're working with. We believe strongly that our employees are a differentiator. And as I said, we are investing in them to make sure that they're prepared for what this new industry brings and that they can take care of our customers as we grow. So we invest in both. So I say thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. It's nice to have a supporter of Apex in their own backyard. I'm not sure people in Portland want to be seen as a backyard, but it's good to have you here. I'm going to open the floor to some questions. If anybody wants to raise anything, please do. We have that opportunity. Before we do that, though, can I just come to something interesting that you said? I'm interested in the idea that you have this strong family connection almost between long-standing employees and customers. You've got that. That's a unique Alaskan thing, if you like. But you talked about Wi-Fi and technology and rapid advances. I guess my question is, how do you manage customer expectations? Because as you're saying, they're going through the roof. They are expecting everything.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we've been doing to manage the expectations is to make sure that we're listening. Like I said, we listen really closely through our surveys and others to understand what, through social, as well as through surveys. And then what we also do is bring them in and co-create with them. So we're listening to them as we're building. So I lead our innovation team, and even most recently, we've been doing a number of experiments in San Jose with biometrics in our airport experience in this case. And what we're trying to understand is with customers, how does this experience work for them? And help them help us create it. And it's really then powerful because then when we go out and tell our story, it isn't us telling a story of something we invented in a conference room. It's a story. It's the customers telling our story and saying, hey, these guys did this, and it made my experience great, and I loved it. The key to that, though, has been, historically a lot of research has been done through surveys. You ask customers, would you do this? And they go, oh, yes. Would you do this? Absolutely. Would you do this? Mm-hmm, yep. And then when you put it in front of them, do they do it? Nope. So we had to kind of take a different turn there and say we actually want to involve them in the process to study their behavior. Like, do they do what they say they're going to do? And that's where we have a lot of listening posts in addition to surveys and engagement, whether it's through our digital tracking and others, just to say, what do people actually do? What content do they actually watch? How many people actually buy the infamous fruit and cheese plate, which is delicious if you fly Alaska. Fruit and cheese is the best. But we actually are measuring and studying to understand the way the customers are responding to the business. In terms of managing the message, we haven't nailed it yet, because we have found where we have create the most pain for a customer or really disappoint them is when we say we have Wi-Fi, and they get on an aircraft that does not have Wi-Fi. That actually is almost like, I want to call it like a double whammy. It's not a technical term, but I mean it's an incremental, greater degree of pain because I've overpromised and underdelivered. And it's something that we're really wrestling with, to help customers know that on this flight, this is what I can offer you. And that's the opportunity in front of us, to be very tailored in the messaging at the flight level.
Okay, very good. I mean, I could ask you so many more questions, but if there's any question from the audience, please raise your hand.
She has one way over here.
Hi, I have a mic.
Yes, thank you. Go on.
Thanks for the microphone. My name's Melissa Gregg. I work at Intel here in Portland. I'm also a social scientist and ethnographer, so I'm extremely happy to hear you mentioned the role of ethnography and sociology in your company. I wanted to ask about a tension that we experience as social scientists studying user experience in a tech context. We often have this dialogue with those that you mentioned who are interested in the analytics of big data. I have to say data because I'm Australian, but I mean data.
Yeah.
And I just wondered how that plays out. So whether you're ethnographers and sociologists studying humans have a way of talking to the analytics side. Is that part of what happens in your innovation team?
So just to clarify my statement earlier, I think that we were recognizing we need the ethnography and sociology study. We've just started to tap into that with some research. So I don't want to pretend that I have a bunch of back in Alaska. But get that out of there. What we're finding, I think you're right, because the analyst community is like one mindset. It's all about the data. And then how do you make it human? About the behavior and the motivation and the heart and the soul that's moving them. I think what's been really interesting is I now report up through the marketing organization, which I didn't do for a while, and bringing those worlds together, where you have design and user experience, which is where Alaska has invested in the last few years, and pairing them up with the analysts, and then actually having a couple, I would say, bilingual folks in between has become really important. My background, I tend to fall in the bilingual space. So I think that's where my role fits in the organization. But it is important because they don't recognize the other's piece the same way. Our design investment has been really powerful when we use a service to actually watch customers who are interacting with our website and listening to what they say and watching what they do, and having our developers and our product teams just shake their head in disbelief because it isn't how they intended. And I was like, well, that's the study. Is to understand what's actually happening, in the wild. In addition to that, with our innovation team, we have a lab at the Seattle airport, so that when we're out there, we are 10 feet away from customers. So we'll be in there going, okay, what do we think? What's the problem we're going to solve? And then we'll just go out and talk to customers, whether it's with mock-ups or drawings or invite them in. So we really try to go be out more in the wild. It's a big key. And bringing the analysts and the developers and the product owners, putting them in the wild with the customer has been incredibly powerful. It kind of makes the data make sense. So that's one of the things we've done.
Okay, I think it is fascinating.
I think
it's fascinating how psychology and social science is now getting wrapped up in all this. It's really, really interesting. We are short of time, I'm afraid. So, Sandy, you're going to be around anyway. If there's any questions that people want to ask her on a one-to-one basis. Yes. Otherwise, Sandy Stelling, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.